3-1 over Real Madrid feels pretty good for culés. Of course it does. But I gotta say, having seen El Clásicos aplenty over the last few decades, that a trophy always feels even better. Regardless of the venue or the prestige of the Spanish Super Cup, a reminder that Barcelona being the second place in the Liga from a season ago would not have been invited a few years ago, well, let's get rid of all that stuff because this could be a pivotal moment in the new chapter for FC Barcelona. And if you're new here, welcome to the Barcelona podcast universe. We have headlines, podcasts, history, and much more. So subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything because I've got a podcast coming out in a few hours. But either way, you came here for the headlines, so here they are. The 5 headlines from Barcelona's 3-1 victory over Real Madrid in the Spanish Super Cup final for Xavi's first trophy. Because that's headline 1. This is Xavi's first trophy as manager of FC Barcelona. It's been a long wait. Many have called for his head, but he finally got it done. And what I'm most impressed by Xavi, because I know we're celebrating at the end of 90 minutes, but I feel like Xavi had this one, not to say won, the players on the field still had to do the work, and we're going to praise them aplenty. But you could tell from minute 1 that Xavi had his tactics right, he has 11 tidy, and he was ready to go. He had motivated his team, and he had done all the work necessary to win a trophy. It was just a matter of whether or not his players could deliver, in which they did. And of course for me, in my defenses of Xavi, telling you that his ideas, he seems to be a little bit too pragmatic at times as the game goes on. His substitutes can be questioned, and his in-game management can be questioned, but he seems to always be prepared in the right way. That's a mark of a good coach, at least in the future, and you can tell that learning on the job, he's figuring things out. Because this team, that being Barcelona, scored their second goal and didn't allow Real Madrid back in the game, that proved to be the difference. And as you remember from Real Betis, Atletico Madrid, any of the other games that Barcelona seemed to lose control, if they do score that second goal, they completely take the wind out of their opponent's sails, and that's the difference for Barca in every game. They're good enough to win any contest, but it's whether or not they allow the other team to find a lifeline. When we talk about that 11 and what Xavi got right, it was Gavi on the left instead of Pedri, which is a bit of a surprise because we've seen Pedri be the left winger when forced into that, kind of a 4-3-3, but really a 3-2-5 when Barcelona are in possession. But today it was Pedri as the attacking midfielder coming to the right in front of Busquets and De Jong. De Jong either parallel or slightly ahead of Busquets depending on Madrid's positioning. Then of course Araujo at right back was the other big one, and as I said on Twitter Spaces before, to shout out to Barca Spaces, that Araujo at right back in the preseason, well, that helped Barcelona keep a clean sheet, led them to a 1-0 win over Real Madrid in the United States. And then in October, when Barcelona lost 3-1, well, it was Roberto against Vini Jr. And no disrespect to Barcelona's second captain, but Roberto against Vini Jr. was always going to end that way. And the other thing to note is Barcelona, while it seems like on paper, with Busquets especially, they should be trying to man-mark Real Madrid out of this game, they didn't. Unlike Real Betis, where their man-marking system worked to good effect, they did change things up, and they went with a zonal marking system, and that worked. Their communication was superb, handing off Vini Jr., of course, and we can talk about the center backs as well, but that midfield that we're going to praise aplenty in this 5 headlines, they did a great job communicating, handing off those wingers, even the fullbacks who were trying to invert in, and the midfielders for Real Madrid that were trying to occupy space in the center of the field. Barcelona controlled the center of the park, and they controlled this game. And what was interesting to me, just like Atletico Madrid, that Real Madrid were playing basically the inverse of what Barca were playing, or should I say, I think Barca, because they're a little more adaptable, were playing the inverse of what Real Madrid were playing. Madrid were playing a 4-4-2 with the 2 forwards up top being a number 9, an elite striker, and then a winger, being Vini Jr., an elite winger, who's able to kind of come inside when he wants, get out to the wing when he wants to. On the left side, Dembélé, of course, doing the same thing on the right. And then a bit of a diamond midfield or a square midfield depending on the setup and the positioning of the opponent, as I mentioned. So now for the third straight game, that being Atletico Madrid, Real Betis, and Real Madrid, Xavi didn't necessarily play Xavi ball or 4-3-3 or some dogmatic Barcelona system. He kind of mirrored his opponent and did it better than they did. And that, I think, is a mark of a coach that knows what he's going to be doing. Even again, if his in-game management and substitutes are still something that we're going to question him for. And then lastly, what really won Xavi this trophy is what I think I'm hopefully going to take away from more than anything else. Yeah, there were superior performances from so many of the Barca players, but Xavi not only had his team motivated, but when they scored the first goal of the game, they earned the goal, they deserved the goal, and they got their goal. Doesn't always happen for Barca, but it did this time. And instead of letting Real Madrid back into this game, I don't know what Xavi had said in the locker room. It probably had something to do with what he said in the middle of the halftime of extra time against Real Betis. A little bit of that motivation. Whatever he said, whatever his plan was, it worked. Because Barcelona immediately retook possession. They won that second ball right off that kickoff from Real Madrid. And then they kind of took the air out of any hopes of a comeback that Real Madrid had. And I think that kind of mental fortitude, and who knows what's happening psychologically, but that mental fortitude is what can take this Barcelona team to the next level. Headline 2 is set the pace, keeping that theme up that Barcelona from minute 1 deserved. They really did outplay their opponent from minute 1 on. They're the team who had the first 3 chances of this game. The first chance comes for Barcelona, Araujo at the back post on a free kick delivery from Pedri. Madrid holding their high line far enough forward where Araujo couldn't get to it, but that was the initial warning shot. Second chance comes for Barca too. Gavi delivering it to Lewandowski on the glancing header. Lewandowski probably offside anyway, but Barcelona continuing to figure things out. Then the third chance to Barca. Wonderful from Gavi, we'll get to him next, into the half space. Lewandowski's powerful shot saved by Courtois, who was the reason why Real Madrid didn't lose this game by more than 3-1. And then it was off the post and Balde blasted over. Balde's probably his worst moment in the match. The fourth chance of the game finally goes to Madrid. Benzema misses on the header, and other than Benzema's goal later on, if you had told me that would be, that first chance for Real Madrid and the fourth total chance in the whole game would be Madrid's best opportunity other than the goal, it'd be a bit surprising. But that meant that Barcelona suffocated Real Madrid in this game. They're the only ones, that being Barca, that had life. Headline 3 is Gavi's world. In the 22nd minute, Ron Araujo blasted this long diagonal ball to that far sideline. And Gavi got on his horse, did everything he needed to do to save that ball. And that is what Kool-Aid associate with Gavi. That effort, that desire, that fight. He had a scrap where he was offside, he disagreed. We see that emotion. So we kind of personify Gavi in a certain way. But this was the kind of perfect Gavi performance that tells you the superstar that he can be. Of course, it's the goal and the assist and what the second should have been an assist. It was a deflected shot that we'll get to. But Gavi was magnanimous in this game. But not only is he a future star and maybe current star in the grit, the fight, the desire, all those intangibles that we love about Gavi, but he also has the talent, the positional awareness, and the ability to improve that's going to make him a mainstay here at Barcelona for a long time, that we can understand and quantify, that we can explain this is why Gavi is so great on the field. It's not just all those things that make him try really, really hard, because a lot of players can try really, really hard, but they can't do what we saw from Gavi tonight. And the reason it's Gavi's world too is because he had his fingerprints all over all 3 goals. The first goal of the game in the 34th minute, it was Gavi's goal. Against Carvajal, just lifting that ball over the hand of Courtois on the finish. Rudiger was the one who gave it away. Busquets wins it off Camavinga. Dembele to Pedri to Lewandowski to Gavi. And this is really important too in this build-up. It was 1 touch from Dembele and Pedri. It was 2 touches from Lewandowski, but his first touch set up his second touch, so it wasn't a long touch that broke things down. So pretty much 4 perfect touches from, well, even 5 counting Busquets' win, from Dembele to Pedri to Lewandowski, finally into Gavi, who takes 1 touch, puts himself in position, and then fired with his non-dominant left foot. Second goal right before halftime, Busquets, a through ball to De Jong, and De Jong just able to toe poke it ahead to Gavi, who was onside, forcing Rudiger over to Gavi, and Lewandowski was behind Militao and Camavinga to score the second. Credit to Lewandowski too in that build-up, because for Lewandowski to even get a goal in this game is kind of a surprise, and you understand that for him to go full 90 after what we saw him, the way he was laboring in the 25th minute, had to come off the field, get some help, and to score that goal shows you that Lewandowski, who knows what his injury is, but now he can rest because he's suspended in the Liga. He'll probably play on Thursday, I would guess, but because he's suspended the next 2 weeks in the Liga, Lewandowski is going to get a rest from a game that he knew what the stakes were, and he played through whatever bit of pain. Third goal comes, Gavi wins the ball and stays onside for the return ball back to him. He gets the deflection on the cross, and Pedri finishes at the back post. And what I want to point out about Gavi that was so incredible tonight, both assists, even if he didn't get credit for the second one, and the goal, they all came from his non-dominant left foot. And you look at the way that he played left wing last season, where he looked lost, and Kool-Aid didn't necessarily blame 17-year-old at the time, Gavi, because you put a 17-year-old on the left wing where he is a center midfielder. Didn't really help out Xavi's case, but Xavi trusted in the player. Obviously, Koeman and Xavi both saw what they had on their hands with him. But this season, now in that same position against Real Madrid, at the left wing, you see his positional sense, his awareness, the way he's adapted. That's what's going to make him a superstar for a long time. Gavi is still, at 18, a sponge. Whatever he can take in and however he can improve his game, just like Pedri, the sky is still the limit. So we see these players, that being Pedri and Gavi, who are the 2 best players on the field for me tonight against Real Madrid, boss El Clasico in a Spanish Super Cup for Xavi's first trophy. Of course, that makes you really excited for the year 2027. But what I'm excited for, and this is maybe just the Kool-Aid in me or the guy who has to watch every minute of every game, I'm excited for these little steps to watch Gavi make those improvements where in a big game, I mean, it's not a credit to Ansu or Ferran Torres or other players who should be on the left wing, but for Xavi to say, Even though I trust Busquets and De Jong and Pedri, that's how we want to build up this team in the midfield against Real Madrid, I have to have Gavi in this game because Gavi was essential in this game. He was the man of the match, clearly. And for him to show out in such a big of a stage, as I said, for Culés, because Barcelona are not in the Champions League, Pedri and Gavi, it's going to be difficult to explain to other people why maybe they're better than Musiala, or maybe they're better than Bellingham, maybe they're better than Camavinga or Tchouameni or all these other midfield superstars for the future. But Gavi, boy, yeah, it's his world and we're all living in it. Headline 4 is midfield control. Let's not stray too far because Barcelona's midfield were superior than Real Madrid. And if you do want to call it Xavi ball, you can't call the formation necessarily Xavi ball or say it's too dogmatic as to what Barcelona are doing at that box midfield. But what you can say is because Barcelona dominated the midfield, they dominated the game. And that is the Barcelona way. On the inverse, I haven't talked too much about Real Madrid because they were poor. And Real Madrid certainly took themselves out of the game with a bit of poor passing and way too many fouls early on that I think took away whatever rhythm Real Madrid wanted to have in the contest. With Vini Jr. not getting the calls against Araujo, I think that kind of threw everybody off a little bit, and then Modric, Kroos, and Camavinga never found the game. There are moments to praise Busquets, and a game like this doesn't change where his future lies. Should he renew at Barcelona? Still probably not. Barcelona need to move on from him. But this is the kind of game that reminds you that this season, as long as Sergio Busquets sticks around, he still has something to offer the club of his boyhood, the club of his dreams, the club of all those things where he is the captain of FC Barcelona. And there was a moment in particular in the first half when Araujo got caught a little bit upfield, had to switch over to the fullback. So that left Koundé and Busquets having to deal with Vini Jr., who was looking to cut inside, and those two, that being Koundé and Busquets, held up Vini Jr., took the ball off him, and the inverse of that, in possession, there was a moment in the second half. It didn't lead to much because Lewandowski couldn't truly track it down and get it off Militao, but Busquets with one touch delivers this huge long ball forward to Lewandowski, like 45, 50 yards on, again, just one touch, seeing the play as it's transpiring before it ever happens, showing you that on both ends there is still something for Busquets to give. Is he the starter over De Jong in a midfield trio of a 4-3-3? No. But again, what can Busquets still give you? Showing you quite a lot. And De Jong as well, against Real Betis, didn't really show his best. Against Atletico Madrid, he was better. But in this one, De Jong was just as good as anybody on the other side of the field. And you could argue that his support of Pedri and Gavi and Busquets allowed them to do their jobs. His work rate tonight goes off that idea that I always want De Jong and Busquets when they play together to stay close. And he did. De Jong played vertically, he played horizontally. But even horizontally, he was very disciplined because he didn't go forward too much vertically. I guess I could say he was vertically disciplined. He allowed Pedri and Gavi to shine, and he covered for them as well. Pedri didn't really have to drop in and defend and pick the ball up deep like we usually expect him to do. De Jong did that job for Pedri, and Pedri was allowed to just kind of be Pedri. Pedri and Gavi probably the two best on the field tonight. And if you want to sum up this whole game in 1 minute, I take you to the 76th minute, where Pedri and Gavi and De Jong, Busquets, right before De Jong came off the field, Dembélé helping out as well, Barcelona just wore Real Madrid down. That was the moment in the contest when you knew that Real Madrid had no chance. They were chasing shadows, the ball was doing all the work, and there was no hope, there was no way back for Real Madrid. That minute, to me, summed up the entire game for that midfield. And headline 5 is a question. Is this the win that Xavi needed? Of course, we'll have to extrapolate some big picture ideas. We'll do a lot of that on the podcast as well. But in a victory in the Spanish Super Cup to get a trophy, we already talked about that. I do wonder how important this can be for Barca's season moving forward. Manchester United in the Europa League is going to be a really tough tie. The Copa del Rey is not a guarantee, and Barcelona are 3 points up in the Liga. But this match, at least, made you feel like, unlike the Champions League, that Barcelona are capable of doing big things in big matches, of which throughout the rest of the season, as they look to get the La Liga and the Copa del Rey and the Europa League. Remember, there are 3 trophies still up for grabs, that Barcelona, at least in some of those matches, at least in some of those competitions, will deliver something. Because I think we often look so much about the issues that Barcelona has that make them a flawed team. And because Madrid won the Liga and the Champions League last year and beat Barca earlier this year, we rarely look at the issues that Barca's opponents may be having. Because Barca obviously have a long-term fullback problem that we've talked about time and time again. But tonight, Balde and Araujo were as close to perfect as you could possibly get. That 51st minute touch off that Ter Stegen diagonal ball and then the drive forward past Danny Hall from Balde, I mean, that's more than what you expect to see from him in a big moment, in a big game. It's why I wonder why he didn't start against Real Betis, and there was a little bit of hubris, I guess, for Xavi to try that Alba then Alonso thing. It almost came back to bite him. But Balde deserved to start. He's the best left back that Barcelona has, and he's certainly not only the one for the future, but he's one for the present too. But if we focus on Madrid again, just like Barcelona's fullbacks, Barcelona are broke. They have huge issues. Real Madrid are flush with cash, and they also have fullback issues. Ferland Mendy was fine in this game, but he's been suspect this season and not who his reputation tells you he is. And Danny Carvajal in this game was awful. He was the worst player on the pitch. Plus, for all the worries of the young players and Ansu and Torres, it was Camavinga who was taken off at halftime for the second straight game. It was a yellow card against Valencia, and he was just poor today against Barcelona, and a teenager getting yanked. Those are always worrying signs for a fan base. And while Kool-Aids this season have complained about Marcos Alonso and Eric Garcia and Ferran Torres, look at the 11 that was selected in this game. And even look at the subs that came on. How Xavi closed out this match. When this team is fully healthy, I'm going to pat myself on the back a little bit of this. I kept trying to tell everybody, the Champions League might have gone different with Araujo and Koundé at 100%. Really, it would have gone differently, those games. I can almost guarantee that. And you see the team that Xavi wanted to put together, especially when it's all healthy. His 11 went deep into this game, and then we saw Kessié, Ansu Fati, Eric Garcia, who's been in transfer rumors this week, Rafinha, and Roberto. And while those subs gave up a goal, Kessié lunging in and missing the tackle and Roberto not stepping to Benzema, the game was already way over by that time. And going back to one of those initial ideas and why I do have hope from this match throughout the rest of this season, is that tactically, as dogmatic as it seems that Xavi is at times, this is not the 11, I would say, or even the formation that Xavi will take to the Copa del Rey midweek, or even against Getafe on the weekend. Xavi's been willing to adapt his formation, and while he does have a pretty limited squad, and the depth does drop off pretty quickly as far as who Xavi can trust, this is a team that if they can adapt, and if they can figure out different opponents in different situations, the sky really is the limit. And I reiterate again that that's 3 straight games where Xavi chose his 11s and got his tactics right against Atletico Madrid, Real Betis, and Real Madrid. For those of us, myself included, who just said that Barca isn't as good as they were last January, this string of results against those 3 teams is a fair argument for the contrary. And while we never know what goes on psychologically for a team, but this is a team, clearly today, that played for Xavi, fought for the manager, and knew what a trophy would mean, and that is huge for their confidence. We always say that belief is a big difference between Real Madrid, that hubris they have in the Champions League to win trophies, and Barcelona, who seem to have some fragility when they're put on the back foot. But this game was also pretty contrary to that belief. It is a Spanish Super Cup, and the way that Real Madrid were kind of walking against Valencia and kind of treating this match as if it wasn't their highest priority, which it shouldn't be when there's Champions League and the Liga and all those things left to play. But yet Barcelona went out in El Clasico in the Spanish Super Cup for a trophy that Xavi really desperately needed. They were the team that needed this victory, and they're the ones that got it. As you're watching this, there's a slight chance that I'm currently recording the podcast, so subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything. And as always, until next time, Forza Barca. But actually, most importantly this time, Campeones.